Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we are diving deep into a shocking and fast-moving story coming out of Eastern Europe, a story that is reshaping energy politics, regional alliances, and the future of Russia's economic survival. What we're seeing right now is a situation few people expected. Russia, a country known for being one of the world's biggest energy giants, has been forced into a position where it must rely heavily on Belarus just to keep its fuel supplies stable. This crisis has exposed vulnerabilities that Moscow never wanted the world to see, and the ripple effects are being felt across Europe, Asia, and even global markets. In this video, we're going to explore how Russia, a nation celebrated for its massive oil and gas reserves, has stumbled into a fuel shortage severe enough that it needs emergency help from Belarus. We'll look at what went wrong inside Russia's energy sector, how the war, sanctions, and internal mismanagement created the perfect storm, and why Belarus now finds itself in a rare moment of leverage over its much larger neighbor. The situation is complex, and the deeper we go, the more surprising the truth becomes. Russia's fuel crisis didn't happen overnight. For years, analysts warned that Moscow's heavy reliance on aging refineries, outdated technology, and a centralized energy strategy was going to cause problems. But those warnings were often dismissed because Russia's energy dominance seemed unquestionable. Now, however, the cracks are impossible to hide. Russia is burning more fuel than it can refine, facing supply disruptions, and dealing with crippling sanctions that have limited its ability to repair and upgrade critical infrastructure. All of this has combined to create a shortage that is now affecting everything from agriculture to the military. As strange as it sounds, the world is witnessing a moment where Russia, one of the largest oil exporters, is struggling to supply its own domestic market. Farmers are complaining about diesel shortages, transport companies are facing rising fuel prices, and there are reports of long waiting times at gas stations in multiple regions. In some areas, rationing has been quietly introduced, with local authorities trying to keep panic under control. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a political embarrassment that Moscow cannot hide. Belarus has now become an unexpected lifeline. For decades, Belarus has been dependent on Russia for energy, loans, and political backing. But the tables have turned. Belarus operates refineries that are still functioning more efficiently than many in Russia, and it has excess capacity that Moscow desperately needs. As a result, Belarus has stepped in to supply Russia with gasoline and diesel, a reversal that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. This sudden shift has changed the balance of power between the two nations. For Belarus, this is a rare opportunity to gain influence. President Alexander Lukashenko, often portrayed as a loyal ally of Russia, is now in a position where Moscow needs him more than he needs Moscow. This gives him bargaining power in negotiations involving trade deals, security cooperation, and financial arrangements. Belarus knows that Russia cannot afford a long-term fuel crisis, especially at a time when its economy is already under strain from international isolation. Every shipment of fuel from Belarus adds another layer of dependency. The crisis intensifies when we look at the international context. Western sanctions have blocked Russia's access to modern refinery parts and advanced technology, making it harder for the country to maintain its fuel production. Many Russian refineries were built decades ago and require constant upgrades to stay competitive. Without access to these upgrades, equipment failures are becoming more common, interrupting production and reducing output. The result is a domestic energy system operating far below its potential. Another major factor behind the crisis is the war. The ongoing conflict has dramatically increased Russia's fuel consumption, especially in its military operations. Tanks, armored vehicles, aircraft, and logistics convoys require massive amounts of fuel daily. As military demands increased, civilian markets were pushed aside, creating shortages that quickly spread across the country. Russia's government tried to downplay the issue, but local reports and leaked documents made the severity clear. Additionally, Russia imposed export restrictions on gasoline and diesel to protect domestic supply, hoping to stabilize the situation. But these restrictions also hurt Russia's refinery profits, reducing their income and making it harder to fund repairs or increase production. Export bans created temporary relief but contributed to long-term strain on the energy sector. Meanwhile, global oil prices remain volatile, adding more pressure to Russia's budget. Belarus, meanwhile, is taking full advantage of the moment. Its refineries in Mazar and Novopolotsk have become critical to Russia's short-term survival. Belarus is refining Russian crude oil and then selling fuel back to Russia at a profit. This unusual loop shows how desperate the situation has become. Moscow has no choice but to accept the terms because it cannot afford domestic unrest caused by prolonged shortages. Every liter of fuel coming from Belarus helps prevent further economic disruption. This dynamic is altering the political relationship between the two countries. For years, Russia has pushed Belarus toward deeper integration, even hinting at the possibility of absorbing Belarus into a larger union state. But now Belarus has found new leverage. It can negotiate more favorable terms on trade, loans, and border agreements. Lukashenko has already made public statements reminding Moscow that Belarusian support is not unconditional, signaling that this partnership now gives Belarus a stronger voice. The global reaction to this situation has been a mix of surprise and strategic recalculation. Analysts in Europe and the United States are closely watching how Russia manages this crisis. A country known for dominating energy markets suddenly relying on a smaller neighbor reveals significant weaknesses. Some experts believe the crisis could push Russia toward even deeper economic dependency on friendly nations like China and Iran, while others argue that this is a temporary setback that Russia will eventually overcome. However, the long-term consequences are much deeper. Russia's inability to maintain its refining capacity exposes vulnerabilities that could affect global oil supply chains. If Russia continues to struggle, more countries might adjust their energy strategies, reducing reliance on Russian energy exports. This shift could reshape global markets, opening opportunities for energy exporting nations in the Middle East, Africa, and North America to increase their influence. Inside Russia, the public reaction is growing more concerned. While the government insists that everything is under control, everyday citizens are experiencing the effects firsthand. Long queues at gas stations, sudden price hikes, delivery delays, and reduced availability of certain fuel types are affecting daily life. Social media posts from various regions show frustration and confusion, with many asking how an energy-rich country can face such shortages. These questions are becoming harder for authorities to ignore. Transport companies are among the hardest hit. Rising fuel costs have increased the price of goods, causing inflation to climb. Truckers are demanding government support as they struggle to stay profitable. Some agricultural regions are also reporting difficulties, especially during harvest seasons when fuel is essential for tractors and equipment. If the crisis deepens, Russia could see significant disruptions in food production and supply chains. Meanwhile, Russia's military operations continue to consume vast quantities of fuel. Military analysts estimate that ongoing campaigns require hundreds of thousands of liters per day, straining an already limited supply. This has forced the government to prioritize the military over civilian needs, a decision that could create more public dissatisfaction over time. If the shortage becomes severe enough, it might even limit Russia's operational capabilities. The relationship between Russia and Belarus is also being watched carefully by neighboring countries. Poland, Ukraine, and the Baltic states are monitoring the situation closely because any shift in Russia's energy stability can affect regional security. Some governments believe that Russia's dependence on Belarus could reduce Moscow's willingness to pressure Belarus politically, giving Minsk more freedom in its policies. Others worry that the crisis might push the two nations into even deeper cooperation, creating more uncertainty. Energy experts say that Russia's best chance of overcoming the crisis is to modernize its refineries, diversify its energy infrastructure, and reduce its dependence on aging equipment. But modernization requires access to foreign technology, something Russia currently lacks due to sanctions. This means the country faces a long and difficult path to rebuild its energy stability. Even if Russia increases its crude oil production, without efficient refineries, it cannot produce enough gasoline and diesel for domestic needs. Another complication is the shift in global energy markets. Many countries are accelerating their transition toward renewable energy, electric vehicles, and cleaner technologies. This could reduce global demand for oil over the next decade. If Russia fails to modernize now, it may find itself with outdated energy infrastructure in a world that no longer relies heavily on oil. This would weaken Russia's economic influence even further. Belarus, on the other hand, may benefit significantly. By providing fuel during Russia's time of need, Belarus strengthens its economic position and increases its importance in regional energy routes. European states that previously dismissed Belarus as merely Russia's satellite are now reevaluating Minsk's role. Belarus has shown that even smaller nations can hold strategic value when global conditions shift. As this crisis unfolds, it also exposes the broader challenges faced by authoritarian systems. Centralized decision-making, lack of transparency, and delayed reform can quickly lead to crises when conditions change. Russia's energy sector has long needed restructuring, but political pressure to maintain the appearance of strength prevented necessary reforms. Now the consequences are becoming visible not only domestically but globally. Looking ahead, Russia faces a difficult choice. It can either continue relying on Belarus and other partners to fill the gaps or invest heavily in modernizing its energy infrastructure, despite sanctions and financial limitations. Neither option is easy. Relying too much on Belarus risks creating long-term dependency, while modernization requires resources and technology that Russia may not be able to access quickly. The world will be watching to see which direction Moscow chooses. For now, Belarus remains Russia's unexpected lifeline. Fuel shipments continue to flow across the border as Moscow tries to stabilize its domestic market. But analysts warn that this solution is temporary. Belarus cannot carry Russia's energy burden indefinitely. At some point, Russia must confront the deeper structural problems that caused this crisis in the first place. Failure to do so could lead to repeated shortages and greater instability in the future. This situation also raises questions about Russia's global ambitions. A nation facing internal fuel shortages is limited in how far it can project power internationally. If the crisis deepens or becomes recurring, Russia may be forced to scale back certain operations or rethink its priorities. Energy security has always been central to Russia's geopolitical influence, and any threat to that security has far-reaching consequences. Across the world, energy analysts, governments, and markets are recalibrating their expectations. Russia's crisis has highlighted how quickly a major energy player can become vulnerable. It serves as a reminder that no nation, regardless of size or resources, is immune to the pressures of global economics, technological limitations, and political challenges. The situation also demonstrates the importance of diversification and modernization, two areas where Russia must improve if it wants to regain stability. Belarus, meanwhile, has entered a new chapter. Its role as Russia's fuel provider gives it economic benefits, political leverage, and international attention. But this also puts Belarus in a delicate position. If Russia recovers quickly, Belarus may lose this unique advantage. If the crisis deepens, Belarus could face pressure to increase its support beyond what its own economy can handle. This delicate balance will shape the future of relations between the two countries. In conclusion, Russia's fuel crisis is more than just an energy shortage. It is a revealing moment that exposes weaknesses in infrastructure, strategy, and governance. It shows how even global powers can stumble when faced with changing realities. The crisis has also transformed the relationship between Russia and Belarus in ways that few anticipated. What happens next will influence not only their future, but the broader geopolitical landscape. If Russia manages to rebuild its refining capacity and overcome the crisis, it may emerge more resilient. But if the problems continue, Moscow may face deeper dependency on neighbors and allies, shrinking its influence on the world stage. The world is watching closely, and the stakes could not be higher as Russia tries to navigate this unexpected challenge, while Belarus holds one of the few keys to its immediate survival.